The Geet Ruler Episode Number 85 Explanation. Boundless amounts of fierce sword aura perfused across the horizon, transforming into currents flowing through the air. As they flooded out, the long sword in Luo Li's hand slightly vibrated, caused currents of sword aura to gush out from the tip of the sword. In the next instant, they howled towards the 5 figures covered in boundless spiritual energy. Facing against such swift and fierce sword aura, the faces of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy were violently twitching. Not daring to show the slightest bit of neglect, they revolved the spiritual energy within their bodies to their maximum degree, unleashing various powerful divine arts, causing rays of light to shoot out, smashing straight on against the sword aura currents. Slice! As the attacks of both parties collided, white light flashed out as the sword aura currents sliced through the spiritual energy rays in an instant. The faces of the 5-man group from the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy instantly contorted, as clearly, they never expected that their offensive would be that weak and meager in front of the incoming sword aura. This sword aura could not be contended head-on. Displaying their movement techniques, the 5 people tried to retreat. However, just as they were about to do so, intense fluctuations suddenly radiated behind their backs. Turning around to take a look, ugly expressions appeared on their faces as they saw that the sword aura had flooded over from behind them. With a bang, it enveloped over like a storm, completely sweeping them within. Faced against the incomparably sharp sword aura, the spiritual energies that surrounded their bodies rapidly collapsed and shattered apart. Other than the group captain, the other 4 members of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy group were instantly covered in wounds. As blood started flowing out, they appeared to become totally blood-soaked, while a wave of sword aura heavily struck them on their bodies. Puff! Blood spurted out from their mouths as 4 figures were instantly sent flying miserably away, instantly suffering serious injuries before landing on the ground. The sword aura across the horizon came to a slight stop. As of now, there was only the captain of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy, with his robes torn and tattered, left before Luo Li. At this moment, his face was drained of color, his eyes overwhelmed with shock as he looked towards the long sword-wielding young girl standing not far away from him, her beautiful face tranquil and devoid of any emotion. Never in his wildest dreams was he able to understand why Luo Li would be that strong, even though both of them were people who had passed their human body disaster. That's why she dared to deal with their entire group by herself. At this moment, a smile filled with bitterness hung at the mouth of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy group captain, since they had truly kicked an iron wall this time. Raising her bright and beautiful eyes, Luo Li gave an indifferent glance at him, before striding forward with her longsword in her hand. Upon spotting this, the captain of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy immediately took a step back, his fighting spirit now completely absent. Upon seeing this scene, the various groups present within the surroundings of this region all quietly clicked their tongues, with their gazes towards her being filled with shock and astonishment. Being such a beauty, none of them had imagined that she would possess such astonishing strength to match. In her hands, an opponent of the same cultivation level as her was simply unable to offer much of a resistance. Why are there so many formidable girls in this great spiritual academy competition? As of now, the first place has been taken by that myriad Phoenix Spiritual Academy's Wen Qingxian. Now, there's yet another fierce girl appearing. I wonder, exactly who would be more formidable if she was to bump into Wen Qingxian? A few groups exchanged glances as they quietly muttered about. At this moment, Xu Huang, Zhao Qingshan and Mu Fengyang had taken action and obstructed the other 3 members of the Earthshore Heaven Spiritual Academy group. Although all of them were similarly in the realm of heavenly completion stage late phase, Xu Huang and the other 2 were able to obtain some superiority. Clearly, their foundation was more firm and strong than the trio from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. Xu Huan and the other 2 weren't just simple students of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. In the past, they were the peak influential figures there, merely that the brilliance caused by Mu Chen's unexpected rise had masked them over. However, there wasn't anyone that wouldn't admit their outstanding talent. There was always some stifling feelings within their hearts, which grew even thicker, especially after seeing the astonishing power that both Mu Chen and Luo Li possessed. The 3 of them were seniors, and yet, they were now being far surpassed by Mu Chen and Luo Li. Despite that, they weren't able to let this stifling feeling out. Therefore, they could only vent it out on their 3 opponents. Launching crazy attacks one after another, they suppressed the trio, suffocating them and causing them to only be barely able to resist their assault. At the other combat zone, Qiu Beihai turned hurriedly around to observe the situation around him, which caused his face to turn completely ashen. Giving a death stare towards the indifferent-looking Mu Chen before him, he clenched his teeth and said, "Mu Chen, you..." Bang! Not giving him any chance to spout any nonsense, a tremble shook through the devouring demonic dragon spear in his hands as an astonishing ominous aura erupted from it. In the next instant, a 100-meter-long ray of brilliance erupted from the spear, splitting apart the horizon and shrouding over Qiu Beihai at lightning speed. Rapidly retreating back, torrential rays of sword light erupted from the scarlet-red sword in Qiu Beihai's hand, blocking him from the spear shadows raining down on him. However, as metallic sounds rang out, he was smashed back dozens of steps in a miserable fashion. In the next instant, feelings of anger, fury, and unwillingness gushed out from his eyes. From the beginning till the end of the spiritual road, he had been suppressed by Mu Chen. If not for him subordinating himself under Ji Xian, he might have long been killed by Mu Chen within there. Subsequently, Mu Chen was expelled from the spiritual road due to Ji Xian's schemes, something that gave great satisfaction to Qiu Beihai. Thinking back about then, he had assumed that the former would no longer be dreadful, even if he was to bump into the former in the future. After all, with him possessing the baptism from the spiritual road, he had exceeded Mu Chen's cultivation by a large margin. Indeed, upon bumping into each other again, the former's cultivation realm of heavenly completion stage late phase caused him to be wildly happy. His chance had come. As long as he could defeat Mu Chen here, the shadow that had formed within his heart would be banished. Therefore, he definitely wanted to squash Mu Chen beneath his feet. However, the changes to the current situation had clearly exceeded his expectations. With his mere cultivation realm being at heavenly completion stage late phase, the combat prowess that Mu Chen possessed had shocked and astonished people. Even under the collaboration and encirclement of two people who passed their human body disaster, he was able to suppress one of them with his terrifying attack and forced Qiu Beihai himself into such a miserable position. How can he be that powerful? Could it be that I, Qiu Beihai, will only become the stepping stone of Mu Chen? Ruthless intent gushed out from the eyes of Qiu Beihai. Staring viciously at Mu Chen, he gave a fierce cry. "Mu Chen! I'll make sure you suffer defeat by my hands today." As his cry rang out, blood suddenly surfaced from the fingertips of Qiu Beihai. The blood appeared exceedingly bright and radiant, while a considerably strong bloody smell perfused into the surroundings, which contained powerful spiritual energy fluctuations. Kai? Kai? Qiu Beihai's fingers started to do a strange and weird dance, with each finger bringing along a line of bright and radiant blood. These lines of blood rapidly converged together in the space before him, and in the next instant, one could faintly discern them transforming into a bloody shadow sword approximately a foot long. As this sword shadow appeared, a bloodthirsty fluctuation radiated from it, causing it to appear rather strange and weird. Mu Chen slightly narrowed his eyes as he took in the scene before him. Nonetheless, he did not take action to prevent this, with a look of indifference continuing to radiate from his eyes, letting Qiu Beihai unleash his most powerful attack. That's because he didn't want to only defeat Qiu Beihai, but to completely crush the latter's self-confidence. He wanted to plant an invincible shadow straight in Qiu Beihai's heart. Just an ordinary death wouldn't satisfy Mu Chen. Bang! Bloodthirsty fluctuations that blotted the skies erupted from the bloody shadow sword, causing even this stretch of the sky to turn scarlet red. Blood Sea Sword Demonic Art, Blood Demon's Sword. Qiu Beihai's complexion grew increasingly pale, yet the ruthless shadow within his eyes grew increasingly heavy. Before him, the blood-like shadow sword expanded to a gigantic size of 100 meters, with what seemed like blood circulating and flowing on its surface. The bloody smell and bloodthirsty fluctuations radiating off of it caused the faces of everyone present to change countenance. At this instant, forming the hand seal for the sword art, Qiu Beihai gave a fierce roar as he poured all of his spiritual energy without the slightest restraint into the bloody shadow sword. Hum! Bloodthirsty sword aura rushed towards the skies, splitting the clouds tens of thousands of meters in the air. Whoosh! With a whoosh, the bloody shadow sword rushed up into the skies at an extremely quick speed. One could merely see a blood-red line shoot up into the air, before suddenly rushing down. In an instant, a surge of bloody light swept across the region as a sea of blood that blotted the skies condensed behind the bloody shadow sword, hiding the skies and covering the earth as it shot towards Mu Chen. Its speed had almost reached unfathomable levels. As the sea of blood gushed out, there was nothing that could block it. He. Locking his ruthless gaze on Mu Chen, chilling laughter suddenly rang out from Qiu Beihai. This attack of his was more than sufficient to cause serious injuries even to experts of human body disaster. He did not believe that Mu Chen could escape from this attack of his. Die for me. As Qiu Beihai roared, Mu Chen raised his head. Looking towards the surging sea of blood that was rapidly expanding in size within his gaze, he slowly clenched his fists tightly. For lightning runes started to condense on his chest as black lightning started to crazily arc and dance on his body. Rumble. Deep peals of thunder rang out from within his body, before resounding across the region. Mu Chen slowly extended his right hand, with countless bolts of black lightning seemingly being born and destroyed within his palm, appearing akin to a world of lightning and thunder. At this moment, a jet-black shadow could be faintly discerned as it gradually spread out within his hand, appearing abstruse and mysterious. Flipping his palm up, he gave a gentle pat towards the incoming bloody shadow sword. Lightning God's Hand. A low voice rang out from Mu Chen's heart, and in the next instant, flashes of lightning and peals of thunder furiously rang out from his black pupils. Rumble. Black bolts of lightning shot out furiously from within Mu Chen's body as lightning started to form within the region, unexpectedly forming an incomparably jet-black giant hand approximately 100 meters large in front of him. Black bolts of lightning crazily danced and arced across the surface of the giant hand, before condensing together, seemingly transforming into ancient runes. Such wildness caused it to appear just like the hand of the god of lightning. This lightning god's hand was an overbearing ability that could only be displayed when one had cultivated his lightning god's physique into a quadra-rune lightning physique, something that Mu Chen was unable to do in the past. However, as of now, he was sufficiently able to do so. Bang! With a pat of his palm, the jet-black lightning god's hand brought about peals of thunder as it howled across the horizon. Finally, under the shocked and astonished gazes in the surroundings, it smashed head-on against the blood demon shadow sword. Boom! An astonishingly loud sound rang out as frightening fluctuations transformed directly into hurricanes, crazily sweeping out across the horizon. At this moment, Qiu Beihai's pale face completely lost all of its color. That's because he had actually seen dense cracks appearing on the surface of the blood-red shadow sword in that terrifying collision. Blood-colored cracks continued to spread throughout the surface of the blood demon shadow sword. Within the short span of a dozen breaths, they had already covered the entirety of the gigantic shadow sword. Furthermore, due to the sparkling of the incomparably black bolts of lightning, the sea of blood at the back of the blood demon shadow sword had surged and flared while it evaporated away. At this moment, the bloody aura that had perfused the entire region started to rapidly dissipate away. This is your final card. Looking towards the deathly pale Qiu Beihai with an indifferent gaze, Mu Chen shook his head in disappointment while saying, "Compared to Ji Xian, you're truly too far behind." Suddenly, he clenched his hand, only for the gigantic lightning god's hand to give a furious clench. As black bolts of lightning crazily arced and danced on the surface of the palm, it grabbed the blood demon shadow sword within it. In the next instant, the black lightning exploded, and with a gigantic bang, the blood demon shadow sword was completely crushed by the giant black lightning hand. Puff! As the blood demon shadow sword was crushed, Qiu Beihai's face instantly contorted as he spurted a mouthful of blood out, while the spiritual energy fluctuations around his body rapidly declined. Clearly, he had suffered serious injuries. The hearts of the various groups in the surroundings slightly trembled as their gazes grew solemn as they took in the scene before them. No one there imagined that the collaboration between two experts that passed their human body disaster would still suffer such a miserable defeat by the hands of Mu Chen. How is this Mu Chen this formidable? He's clearly only at the realm of heavenly completion stage late phase. However, from the looks of his combat prowess, I'm afraid that he might be comparable to those experts that have passed their spiritual energy disaster. Truly frightening. I reckon that this Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy group is finished. Looks like the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy is really going to have a meteoric rise in this great Spiritual Academy tournament. Soft whispers of discussion rang out, with unconcealable shock and astonishment present in those voices. They had originally expected a fierce battle between the two great spiritual academies. However, who would have expected that such a scene would happen? As of now, that Mu Chen had clearly not unleashed his true strength yet. However, even with that, his attack was more than sufficient to sort out that Qi Beihai and that Shen Jun. Mu Chen shot a glance towards Qiu Beihai and his blood-stained lips. At this moment, the latter shot a gloomy gaze back, with an uncontainable feeling of dread and terror surfacing within his heart. In the next instant, he furiously turned around and crazily fled away. He already knew that he did not have any chance of victory anymore. Captain. Upon noticing this, the faces of the three group members from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy that were being suppressed by Xu Huang and the other two instantly contorted as confusion filled their hearts and minds. Due to this, the stalemate was broken by Xu Huang and the other two as boundless palm winds pierced through their defenses. Smashing against their chests, they were sent flying back while spurting blood. Looking towards the fleeing figure of Qiu Beihai, Mu Chen gave a flick of his finger, sending a ray of light shooting across the horizon at lightning speed. Ah! Qiu Beihai's miserable shriek rang out from the distance as blood flowed out from his hands. His remaining fingers had all been chopped off. Nevertheless, despite being overwhelmed with soul-shocking dread and terror, he did not give any care about his chopped-off digits, opting to hastily flee away like a dog with its tail between its legs. Mu Chen didn't give chase, as he knew that Qiu Beihai could not only be considered as disabled, his combative spirit had been completely broken, with his heart being filled with the scars of terror. Furthermore, he had tossed his group members aside and fled on his own. Even if he was to return, this group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy would no longer treat him as their captain. When this matter gets circulated around, he would even suffer the contempt and disdain from all of the students of the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. Such an ending was even more cruel than being killed. Nevertheless, Mu Chen didn't have any pity for Qiu Beihai. Within the spiritual road, the latter had clearly participated in the schemes of Ji Xian. Furthermore, after forcing Mu Chen to get expelled from the spiritual road, he had actually dared to encircle Luo Li. This was something that Mu Chen couldn't endure. Therefore, the latter ending up in such a state was something he could only blame himself for. Ring. While Qiu Beihai was fleeing away, sword aura pervaded through the air not far away as a shadow sword sliced apart rays of spiritual energies, before finally resting right in front of the chests of the group captain of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy. The swift and fierce sword aura caused the latter's body to tremble as he hastily raised his hands in the air while saying with a hoarse, bitter laugh, "I surrender. Please show mercy." Shooting a glare at him with her beautiful eyes, Luo Li didn't say anything. Instead, she only extended her slender, jade-like hand. Seeing this, the captain of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy gave a bitter and pained smile before giving a sigh while cursing and swearing at Qiu Beihai's entire family in his heart. That bastard! If I'd known that he had provoked such a formidable opponent, I wouldn't have collaborated with him. The current situation wasn't good for his group. As with the saying of trying to lure a chicken only to end up with losing the lure, they now had to hand over their hard-earned points without getting any in return. With a clench of his hand, his academy plaque appeared, before he obediently handed it to Luo Li. Receiving the academy plaque, Luo Li turned around and shot towards Mu Chen. Taking it over, he shot a look at it, before saying out with a smile, "Quite juicy." There was actually over 700 points displayed on the academy plaque of this Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy group, which was about the same as their group. From the looks of it, these fellows had spent quite a bit of time snatching those points from other groups. Therefore, without the slightest bit of politeness, Mu Chen transferred half of the points over to his academy plaque. Due to this, the number of points his group had broke past the 1,000 mark, reaching over 1,100 points. It's a pity. If we're able to snatch the points of the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy group, we would have been able to enter the top 16, said Luo Li as she shot a look towards the direction which Qiu Beihai had fled to. Such an academy plaque was only held by the captain, and was the only one that could be snatched by others to transfer the points. Those in the group members' hands were used as a source of information. Therefore, with Qiu Beihai fleeing away, they had no way to snatch his points. Now's not the time to enter the top 16, replied Mu Chen as he shook his head. If they were promoted into the top 16, they would attract the attention of other groups. Although this was something that Mu Chen wasn't afraid of, there would be quite a bit of trouble that would come then. At this moment, the Great Spiritual Academy tournament had just started. Mu Chen felt that revealing himself wasn't a very smart thing to do. The reason why Wen Qingxian, Ji Xian and the rest dared to do such a thing was not only due to them possessing strength above the masses, but also due to their group members being the elite amongst the elite. Compared to them, Mu Chen's group was clearly much weaker. Therefore, revealing themselves wouldn't be good for them. Being calm and intelligent, Luo Li immediately understood Mu Chen's decision in an instant, nodding her head in approval. If Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong were placed in their group, they would be able to remove much of the dread and fear that might come with entering the top 16. However, it was a pity, because if they were to distribute the students of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy that way, the strength of the second group would be too weak. With a flick of his finger, Mu Chen sent the academy plaque back to the captain of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy before saying with a grin, "Thank you very much." Hearing his words, the face of the captain twitched a few times. Looking at his points on the academy plaque, which had been deduced by half, he felt as if his heart was starting to bleed from the pain. Those were points that they had toiled and worked painstakingly hard to obtain. However, at this moment, half of them have been snatched away. This really was like the saying, robbers will always be robbed. Ignoring the captain, Mu Chen turned his gaze towards the combat zone not far from him, where the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy was. The two groups that were originally surrounding the Desolation Spiritual Academy clearly had discovered the changes that had happened on the other side, causing the faces of all their members to turn ugly, especially when noticing Mu Chen's gaze shooting over. This caused their hearts to start jumping in fear. The two captains clenched their teeth, before raising their hands and stopping their respective groups. Seeing that, the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy breathed a sigh of relief. With a wave of his hand, Mu Chen brought Luo Li and the others as they shot over. Staring at the two groups, he spoke out with a faint smile. "Did you two groups also collaborated with Qiu Beihai?" "Ha ha, what are you saying, brother? We've never collaborated with him. That was just a mutual benefit. However, since he had scrammed off now, we naturally don't have a single bit of relation with him." Hearing Mu Chen's question, the two captains instantly gave a dry laugh, before replying. They had seen how miserable the outcome was for the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy. Thus, they naturally didn't dare to make an enemy out of the powerful group before them. With a smile, Mu Chen nodded his head and said, "Since it's the case, would it be inconvenient for you to let us pass?" Hearing his words, the hearts of the two groups instantly turned cold as they thought, indeed, this Mu Chen has his sights on the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy. Exchanging glances, all of them could see the unwillingness brimming in each other's eyes. After suppressing the Desolation Spiritual Academy after much difficulty to such a state, the information was almost about to enter their hands. However, an obstruction had suddenly appeared, one that was so fierce and ferocious, even defeating the entire group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. Sigh? Making a helpless sigh, they could only shake their heads and move aside. Mu Chen not dealing with them or taking half of their points away could already be considered as a much better outcome than what the group from the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy had gone through. Giving no care about them, Mu Chen slowly walked forward, shooting a look at the Desolation Spiritual Academy. Having clearly experienced a great long battle, the faces of the latter were all somewhat pale, showing their enormous consumption of strength. However, the strength of this group was truly extremely strong, as them being no less stronger than Qiu Beihai's group. There were two experts who had passed their human body disaster in this group, with the other three members being of heavenly completion stage late phase. With such strength, it was no wonder why they were able to endure for one whole day in the top 16. As Mu Chen was sizing up the group from the Desolation Spiritual Academy, a somewhat burly youth stood up from the latter. With a shift of his gaze, he cupped his hands towards Mu Chen and said, "This brother, I'm Lin Ju of the Desolation Spiritual Academy, the captain of this group." "Ha ha. So it's Captain Lin Ju. With a grin, Mu Chen cupped his hands and said, I'm Mu Chen, the captain of this group. Seeing Mu Chen's smile, Lin Ju gave a dry laugh before saying, Thank you very much for helping us escape, Captain Mu Chen. Our Desolation Spiritual Academy will remember this favor. If you have anything you need help with in the future, please do say so. However, we bid farewell to you all today. After finishing his statement, he gathered his group in a bid to quickly retreat. However, before they could turn around, they saw that Luo Li had brought Xu Huang and the other two to block their path of retreat, causing a shiver to run down their bodies. Captain Lin Ju, we've just met today, and have yet to have a proper conversation. Why not leave with us first? Look at all the tigers staring covetously at you in the surroundings. If you leave like that, I'm afraid that nothing good will end for you. Walking forward, Mu Chen gave an intimate pat on Lin Ju's shoulder and spoke out with a gentle smile. Are you joking? We've been painstakingly chasing you guys for an entire day, and have even crossed hands with the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy. How can I let you run away that easily? Lin Ju's expression turned stiff as he looked towards Mu Chen, before finally giving a bitter laugh. Previously, he had seen how formidable Mu Chen was. The group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy possessed strength that was comparable to his group. However, they had ended up in such a miserable state in the end. Therefore, let's not talk about their current state, where their energy consumption was that massive. Even if they were in their best state, they would not dare to take action against Mu Chen. As he and his 4 other group members looked at each other, all of them became dejected and crestfallen. They never imagined that they would end up in a tiger's den after escaping from a pack of wolves. What luck they have! The various groups in this region that were originally eyeing the Desolation Spiritual Academy group covetously could now only stare mutely as Mu Chen and his group brought them and left into the distance. Nevertheless, despite that, none of them could muster any heart to go forward and contend. What a joke! Even the group from the Azure Heaven Spiritual Academy was dealt with that easily. How would their groups dare to go up and issue a challenge? Therefore, faced with the 2 groups leaving into the distance, they could only stare at each other, before heaving a sigh in helplessness. Mu Chen brought along the Desolation Spiritual Academy group far away to evade those covetously eyeing groups. Once he discovered that there wasn't anyone chasing them, he'd take a breath of relief. Looks like him defeating Qiu Beihai and Shen Jun early had resulted in no small amount of shock in the hearts of those groups. If not, it would truly be extremely difficult for him to bring this Desolation Spiritual Academy group away that easily under the attention of so many groups. Exchanging glances with Luo Li, Mu Chen descended on a remote mountain peak. Seeing this, Lin Ju could only give a helpless sigh, before bringing his group members and descending. You guys take a rest first. Landing on the mountain peak, Mu Chen sent a faint smile towards the pale-looking Lin Ju and his group before speaking out. Hearing those words, Lin Ju and his group immediately gawped. Clearly, they had not imagined that Mu Chen would actually let them rest and recover. After all, they would be able to put up some resistance upon recovering their strength. I believe that Brother Lin Ju should not be the type that would destroy the bridge after crossing the river, right? Mu Chen said while sending a smile towards Lin Ju. Patting the gigantic rock beside him with his hand, he gave a flick of his finger. With a crack, the rock instantly turned into powder, fluttering about in the air. Patting away the dust on his hand, the smile on his face turned bright and radiant. Exchanging glances with his group members, Lin Ju gave a dry laugh. From the looks of it, all of them could feel the threat present within Mu Chen's words. Silently cursing in their hearts, they could only sit down and close their eyes without delay to recover the spiritual energy they had consumed. Only after seeing Lin Ju and his group closing their eyes to cultivate did Luo Li approach Mu Chen. Casting her bright and beautiful eyes towards the latter, she softly spoke out, "What are you trying to do?" If Mu Chen wanted to snatch the points from them, he clearly didn't have to go through that much trouble. At this moment, Xu Huang and the other 2 had also looked over and stared at Mu Chen. To us, the most important thing now isn't points, replied Mu Chen with a faint smile. Did you remember what the Dean said? The place we're in right now is a fragment of the shattered continent. On this fragment, there are many ancient treasures, as well as inheritances. If we're lucky, we might be able to obtain some of them, which would definitely increase our strength by leaps and bounds. Don't just look at how fierce the competition for the top 16 is. Other than them, there is also a small amount of groups that are genuinely strong and powerful. As for the rest, they simply don't have the qualifications to stand till the very end. Those formidable groups have not completely revealed themselves. That's because they aren't anxious to snatch points. Instead, they are looking for remnants across the entire continent, letting their groups become even stronger. As for those groups that are going about snatching points, they would pay the price for that in the end. Without sufficient strength, regardless of how many points you have, you'll just be feeding other people in the very end. Strength and power are still the greatest factors in the rankings in the very end. Expressions of deep thought appeared on the faces of Xu Huang and the other two, before they fiercely nodded their heads. What Mu Chen said was correct. If one didn't possess sufficient strength, even if they were able to obtain the first place in the point rankings, so what? At that time, they would merely be a fat sheep in the eyes of everyone. Those few groups that have bid their time and concealed their strength would be able to easily defeat them. When that happens, their points would still be snatched away. Truthfully speaking, there's still quite a disparity in strength of our group when compared to those elite groups, said Mu Chen slowly as he looked toward Xu Huang and the others. Hearing that, Xu Huang and the other two scratched their heads. Yet, all of them did not refute his words. After all, that was indeed the reality. In their group, the only ones that were truly able to compare with those experts in the elite groups were Mu Chen and Luo Li. As for them three, speaking bluntly, there was a possibility that they would drag the group down. Therefore, I hope that we can increase the strength of our group. At the very least, I want for you to pass through your human body disaster, said Mu Chen in a serious tone. Hearing that, Xu Huang, Zhao Qingshan and Mu Fengyang all gave a bitter laugh. Human body disaster, huh? Thinking about it would bring about fear in them. If one didn't have any external aid and help when attempting to pass through this tribulation, none of them had much confidence in succeeding. So you wish to search for remnants to increase the strength of our group? Shooting a glance towards Lin Ju and his group, who were in closed-eye meditation, Luo Li spoke out, you want to obtain the information about the remnants of the ancient antiquity from them. Mu Chen nodded his head in response. Looking at Lin Ju, he smiled and said, I truly don't know if the luck of those fellows is good or bad. Within a day's worth of time in here, they were actually able to obtain information with regards to the remnants from the ancient antiquity present here. However, in the end, news about this was divulged out. The critical element was that they were in the top 16, which caused their location to be revealed. Therefore, it had attracted so many groups to covetously eye them. At this moment, Luo Li could not help covering her mouth and softly laugh. Her clear and bell-like laughter caused Xu Huang and the other two to cast sympathetic gazes towards Lin Ju and his group. This group of fellows is indeed pitiful. However, will they tell us about that information? That thing should be very important, right? The less people know about it, the better it is. Xu Huang said. I believe that if we're sufficiently sincere, coupled with the fact that we've saved them, that Captain Lin Ju isn't the type that would show ingratitude to a friend, said Mu Chen with a grin. I've always been very kind to friends. However, if he's the type that would destroy the bridge after crossing it, I won't let him off that easily. Although, according to the rules, the points of a group can only be deducted by half in one day, if we were to guard their corpses, we only have to stand guard for a few days to drain them all clean. It's good enough to let them be eliminated. Hearing that, Xu Huang and the other two were completely dumbfounded. Looking towards the gentle smile present on Mu Chen's face, the three of them could not help shivering. Isn't that too vicious? Luo Li casted her beautiful eyes towards the cultivating Lin Ju, with the latter's eyelids seemingly twitching slightly at this moment. Seeing that, she gave a laugh and shook her head, not choosing to say any words. Not caring about the dumbfounded and stupefied Xu Huang and the other two, Mu Chen continued to speak in a lazy fashion. Now's the time to rest. Let's wait for Captain Lin Ju and his group to recover, before having a friendly exchange with them. Exchanging glances with each other, Xu Huang and the other two could only sit down and wait for Lin Ju and his group to wake up. Bringing about a whiff of fragrance, Luo Li took gentle steps forward and took a seat beside Mu Chen. An amused expression surfaced in her beautiful eyes as she shot a glare at him while saying in a soft voice, "You bad boy. You don't have to scare people to death." Shooting a cheeky smile towards her, Mu Chen looked towards Lin Ju, whose body appeared to be slightly trembling. Moving near to Luo Li, he gave a helpless sigh and replied, "There's no choice. Being a captain, I have to take the entire group into consideration. After all, what happens in the future can't always depend on the two of us. I have to find a way to let Xu Huang and the other two increase their strength. Naturally, the remnants from the ancient antiquity would bring a massive benefit to use. I believe that those elite groups are searching the entire continent for those remnants. Therefore, I don't want to fall behind." Complaining bitterly, he said, "Being a captain truly isn't easy." Raising her eye towards Mu Chen, Luo Li shot an ambiguous smile towards him before saying. Unknowingly, Mu Chen had quietly seized Luo Li's waist in his evil grasp, causing her to slightly freeze up. Looking towards the ambiguous smile on Luo Li's face, he gave a grin, yet he didn't withdraw his face. Instead, he placed his palm on the young girl's waist, with such slenderness causing him to feel reluctant to part. Seeing that this fellow's skin was that thick, a pinkish shade surfaced on her lovable face as she shot an embarrassed glare at him. Nevertheless, after slightly hesitating, she rested her face gently on his shoulder. As her lovable nose rubbed against Mu Chen's neck, her breath was akin to the fragrance of flowers, giving off an exceedingly alluring sight. Seeing the intimacy between the two, Xu Huang and the other two turned their heads away by their own initiative as their faces became filled with envy. "Luo Li, we've been in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy for close to 2 years already, right?" Tightly grabbing the little waist of the young girl, Mu Chen spoke out in a soft voice. Luo Li gently nodded. Seemingly able to guess what it was about, her clear and bright eyes grew slightly dim. "Perhaps, there's not much time left for me," replied Luo Li slowly. Raising his head, Mu Chen deeply exhaled, as feelings of disappointment and frustration surfaced within his heart. He knew that there truly was not much time left for Luo Li to spend with him. Being able to leave the Luo God clan for close to 2 years of time might be already the greatest compromise her grandfather could make. Once the time was up, she had to return to the Luo God clan and receive the responsibilities that she should hold, which was to become the next queen of the clan. At that time, she would need to hold the heavy responsibility of the lives of the millions of citizens of their Luo God clan. He truly didn't know how a girl like her would be able to endure such a heavy responsibility. Just thinking about it caused Mu Chen to feel pain in his heart. However, despite that, as of now, he was too weak, and was simply unable to provide any help for her. "Luo Li, regardless of what happens in the future, you definitely have to remember to wait for me. Wait for me to head to the Luo God clan. At that time, I'll squash anyone who bullies you to death." Lowering his head to look towards the soul-stirring face beside him, Mu Chen spoke out in a soft voice. Luo Li blushed as a smile surfaced on her face, while her eyes were turning slightly red. She looked towards the handsome and resolute face of the youth beside her. "When I'm in the Luo God clan, I'll have some support, at the very least. However, you'll be alone, traversing the vast great thousand worlds. Wanting to walk on the path of experts, how much hard work and effort will you have to pay?" "Yes." However, she did not speak the words in her heart, she only chose to gently look towards Mu Chen and slightly nodded her head, just like a little wife. With a smile, Mu Chen lowered his head, looking straight towards Luo Li's slightly opened eyes, before planting a peck on her lovable lips. A pinkish shade appeared on Luo Li's beautiful face. Nevertheless, due to her not knowing how long she could still remain by Mu Chen's side, Luo Li, who was usually too shy to be too intimate with him in front of others, slightly closed her eyes, giving in to his philandering. Sigh? However, Mu Chen's enjoyment didn't last for long, as a dry cough broke the atmosphere. This caused Luo Li to instantly regain her senses. With her face turning beet red, she shoved Mu Chen away and fled away in embarrassment. Feeling a great sense of disappointment, Mu Chen instantly turned his head around viciously, looking straight towards the just-awakened Lin Ju, who was now awkwardly looking back at him. At this moment, the glare shooting out from Mu Chen's eyes was so fierce to the point of wanting to crush the latter's body into 1,000 pieces. Seeing that glare shooting straight at himself, Lin Ju's scalp instantly turned numb. Thinking back to the words those devils had said earlier, he hastily raised his hand and spoke out. Captain Mu Chen, we're willing to share the information. This episode ends here. Thank you for watching.